Good morning and go Chiefs. You are looking live at downtown Kansas City, just a few hours away from another Super Bowl victory parade. Players, fans, and yes, our team doctors, everyone is gearing up for Kansas City's biggest party since our last win just 3 years ago. And no, your ears are not deceiving you. I'm Jessica Lovell, and this is Open Mics with Dr. Stites. Dr. Stites is with us in studio, decked out with lots of red and lots of color and hair. You have hair. This is amazing.
You know,
I love it.
I grew it just for you, Jess.
I love this. Okay, so we're going to get with you, I promise, here in just a moment. But Dr. Stites, we got to start with our champions, as you know. And yes, the Chiefs are true champions yet again. But so are their doctors who work so hard behind the scenes. We are taking you live to the parade route to hear what this winning partnership really means. Then the director of stroke research at KUMC is here to break down new findings. They were published less than a week ago that could end up changing how doctors everywhere react to strokes. Plus, the new clinical trial that's trying to reduce the number of times patients get stuck with needles. So are bloodless blood tests truly bloodless? There is first, though, we got to talk about this. So much excitement for the Super Bowl champions. Let's go live to Alexis Del Cid. Nice and bundled up down there in downtown Kansas City. She got a spot nice and early. And Alexis, good morning. I think you got a good spot here this morning. And I want to hear all about these doctors, our doctors, who are also going to be in this parade today. Tell us all about it.
Jess, this is so cool. We are in probably the best spot. Hats off to Cliff Irwin, who got us here, our photojournalist. We're here at the corner of Pershing and Grand. This is the home stretch of where the Chiefs and the whole parade will be coming when the parade ends. It doesn't start till noon. And yes, can you believe we're here for a second time in 3 years? We're here to celebrate our winning Super Bowl team, the Kansas City Chiefs, but we also want to recognize our other dream team, and we're talking about the team of University of Kansas Health System doctors who've been keeping our Chiefs healthy all season long. They're going to be here. And speaking of, I mean, who wasn't clutching their chest and holding their breath when we saw Patrick Mahomes appear to re-aggravate his ankle during the Super Bowl? He was off on the sidelines. Well, take a look at this picture. The guy in front of him, you only see the back of his head there. That is Dr. Paul Schruppel, the doctor on his knee in front of Mahomes. And Dr. Schruppel is just one of 5 members of what we're calling the health system dream team. Here they are in full glory after the win in the field from left to right. Let's give them all some honor. Dr. Brian Beaupot, Dr. J.P. Darsh, Dr. Luke Thompson, Dr. Scott Mullen, and Dr. Paul Schruppel. You can see his face in that picture because he's not tending to Mahomes' ankle. Back here live, we also spoke with a very important person at the health system, President and CEO Bob Page, who talked to us about just how special this partnership is.
One of the things that Mark Donovan has said from the beginning is we give the Chiefs a competitive advantage. I mean, a player gets hurt, they go right to our clinic, right there on site. They get what they need. They can get over here, one-stop shopping. It's a wonderful relationship we have with the Chiefs, and it's been over 10 years in the making. It makes me so proud as to, while the game's going on, if you look on the sidelines, those are our guys, our docs down there taking care of those players. And if you meet those guys, they're just salt of the earth. They're happy to be there, and they're very, very qualified to be on that sideline. You're talking about a world champion football team. I mean, it would be one thing just to be on the sideline with any football team, and now you're talking about the best of the best. I mean, it can't get much better than that.
Back here live, the parade doesn't begin for another 4 hours, but take a look at how busy it is right now. We have the police officers on their horses. We have people lined up. These people started arriving at 5 a.m. We got here about 5:45. The parking garage was filling up. People are here. They are ready to go. This is amazing. Starts at 6th and Grand, makes its final stretch down to Union Station, where there'll be a huge pep rally. Gotta say, it is very, very cold out here. But Jess, I have seen 2 people in shorts. I don't know how they're still walking and able to move their legs, but it's happening. I guess when you're happy enough and you're this jazzed, it really doesn't matter what the temperature is. Just a beautiful day to be out here. So when you see the health system doctors go by in one of those buses, be sure to give them some love, because they played a big role in keeping our Chiefs safe and healthy for yet another Super Bowl win. Merry Chiefsmas.
Alexis, I know you weren't living here when they won last time. What's it like to be back home and watch all this front and center?
So good. I can tell you, we are so happy to see them win the first time and so homesick, having to celebrate across the country. It is so great to be back. This is just really beautiful. Hey guys, go Chiefs! Woohoo! We're having a great time out here. This is the place to be.
Okay, stay warm and have fun, okay?
I can do both of those.
You can do it.
Well, for sure.
All right,
have fun.
Alexis.
I don't know if you can stay warm out here.
No, you can't. You'll do it. Have fun. Thank you so much. Dr. Stites, I'm going to let you take it from here.
All right. Thanks, Jess and Alexis. And as we like to say, Casey-mo, whoa. Well, most of my Tech 9, I'm pretty good at that, right? All right, we'll get to this morning's clinical trial in just a moment, but first we want to share a remarkable news that was a study published in the New England Journal of Medicine and presented at the International Stroke Conference just last week. We were the second highest enrolling site in the world for the SELECT-2 trial. Even more impressive and important, though, are the trial results and the future impact on stroke patients. Neurologist Dr. Michael Abraham joins us for Morning Rounds. He is the director of stroke research at the University of Kansas Medical Center. He treats patients in neurocritical care and neurointerventional surgery. Dr. Abrams, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thanks for having me.
All right, talk to us a little bit about what the SELECT trial looked at.
So basically looked at patients with what we call a large vessel acute stroke who came in with a large core stroke. So that means a large portion of the brain was already stroked out prior to any kind of treatment, whether it be TPA or thrombectomy. And it randomized these patients to either clot retrieval or thrombectomy or what we call standard of care medical management. And it looked at outcomes going not only to 90 days, but actually all the way out to 1 year.
You know, it's interesting. Sometimes you look at these trials in the New England Journal, and I read it pretty much. I read it again this morning for preparation, and you know, you see the results. At times I think, oh, that's pretty good. Sometimes, man, that's really impressive. Tell us why, in this case, it's so important. Why was it looking at these patients?
So prior to this trial, basically the only patients we treat were those with what we call a small core infarct. So the small portion of the brain or no portion of the brain that is stroked out, meaning there's a large area of the brain to save. But out of all large vessel occlusion strokes, about 20%, 1 in 5 people, present with a large core. So there's a big proportion of patients that were not getting treated, and a lot of these people were having, high mortality rates, going to nursing homes, hemicraniectomy, and a slew of other complications from that.
Yeah, and that's obviously not the outcome anybody wants, to have that kind of result from a stroke. So what were the outcomes and the results from the trial?
Yeah, so really impressive outcomes. Basically, there's two main things we looked at. One was what we call a good outcome. Those people who have some deficits but can still live an independent life. 20% of patients in the treatment arm had a good outcome versus 7% in the standard of care arm. And then the other important thing was the ability to ambulate independently. 37% of patients in the treatment arm were able to ambulate independently versus only 18% in the standard of care arm. And that has a huge impact, being able to ambulate, because if you cannot do that on your own, you will need a caregiver, a loved one, someone close at hand to help you with everything, to get from your bed to the bathroom, from the bathroom to the toilet, to the shower, to the dining table, everything. So it has a huge impact, not just on the patient, but on their loved ones and caregivers.
Yeah, that you just can't measure the impact of that of having a big stroke on a family unless you really talk to patients and people who have been harmed by that. And you step back and you look at this trial and you are like, holy cow! Did you think earlier in your career that you could see this type of result from something we thought may have been irreversible at this point?
To be honest with you, early on, when we've been doing this for a long time, but we thought, going into and trying to pull out a clot from somebody's brain with a large core, we thought, oh, they're going to do bad, they're going to have a high risk of bleeding or worse complications. But this trial really opened our eyes, and I think the rest of the world as well.
No, that is a big deal. So, Dr. Edwards, are you a Chiefs fan?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so do you have a lucky hat? You see, this is my lucky hat. I wear this the days before the game. I have another lucky hat that I wear on day of game. I didn't bring that because I can't put that at risk. It's been, it's won for 2 Super Bowls, but this one is my next luckiest hat, so I wore that one today. Do you have anything like that going on?
I've got my lucky sweatshirt. My wife got all of us gear, so I wear the sweatshirt for every game. make sure to wash it in between. So
well, I don't wash it because if you win, you can't change the luck. It just has to smell bad. Exactly. But you know, the reality is, I think we should have a randomized trial here looking at lucky things to make sure that they're truly lucky. I don't know. I'm not sure what the results would be. Hopefully it'd be as good as that clinical trial you just talked about.
Let's see if we can get it published.
I'm ready. I'm ready. All right. Thank you for joining us, Doctor. That's awesome. That is really important research.
Thanks.
All right. Now we're going to switch gears, though, and we're going to talk about today's main topic. We're going to talk about a condition that affects 6 million Americans and kills about 700,000 every year. That's 1 in every 5 deaths, according to the CDC. This condition is called heart failure. Heart failure means that your heart can't pump enough oxygen-rich blood to meet your body's needs. Heart failure doesn't mean that your heart has stopped or is about to stop beating, but without enough blood flow, your organs may not work well, which can cause serious problems. Imagine it like this. If your heart's supposed to squeeze about 65% of the blood out with each time it beats, what happens when the heart can only squeeze out 30% of the blood, or 20% of the blood, or 10% of the blood? That is a really strong concern for patients because it limits their ability to go out and exercise and do things or even have a good quality of life. That's what happened to our guest this morning, Brian Pitts, who suffered heart failure. He's with us remotely. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Brian, I just got one question here. And before we get to the important questions, you've got some green and black here. Are you an Eagles fan?
No, by no means at all.
I just had to check because, you know, they've changed the name of that Eagles, that Fly Eagles Fly. Have you heard of the new title? Buy Eagles Buy. Yeah, I think that was a lot better. I just want to make sure that's not what you were representing today. All right, well, tell us a little bit about... All right, well, thank you for joining us. And we're also joined here in the studio by Ava Adams, a clinical research coordinator at the University of Kansas Medical Center. She is helping with a clinical trial of a device that could help people like Brian and their doctors monitor the patient's blood work without having to set foot inside a doctor's office. Now that is what I would call a win.
Yes.
All right. And Dr. Dana Hawkinson will join us to give our latest COVID count. Thanks to you all for being with us this morning. Brian, let's start with a little bit of your background. You ultimately had a heart transplant just last April. But talk with us about the phases of your heart problem that finally led to that.
I'm about 10 months out now post-transplant. I discovered I had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy back in 2007 when I collapsed at a wedding in full cardiac arrest. I was really at the right place at the right time. The bride actually did CPR on me for about 7 minutes, keeping my blood circulating until the EMTs could arrive and shock me back to life. I had an implanted defibrillator in my chest here. And, you know, for about 14 years, everything was pretty normal. I would be monitored by Dr. Barenbaum there at KU Medical Center and medicated. And then in December of 2021, I was cooking here at the stove and I received a shock. Followed up with KU with Dr. Barenbaum, and kind of a long story short, it turned out I was entering end-stage heart failure from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
Well, that is a pretty amazing story. And as testament to your heart transplant, you survived the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl on Sunday.
That was pretty stressful.
It was a little stressful, so I think things are going really well for you. Thank you for being part. We'll come back to you in just a moment. Eva, before Brian had his transplant, he was suffering from heart failure. You know, those fluid backing up, and then your heart starts beating irregularly, and et cetera. And heart failure patients need constant monitoring and blood testing, like many types of patients we have to take care of all the time. All of which can be very disruptive to their daily lives. Just think, you got to run up to the lab, you got to sit in line. I mean, and then you just got to get poked. I mean, there's lots of considerations here. But you're testing a device that could change all that. Tell us about the so-called bloodless blood test. I love it.
Yes, well, thank you for asking about it. So it is called Tribe right now. That's the study. Brian was on Tribe 1, and currently the clinical trial team is running Tribe 2. And so the goal of this is to collect data from the patients through a watch and a scale, and then we will trend that Yes, exactly. With their NT-proBNP, which is a precursor to BNP, which is a cardiac biomarker. So we add all these trends together and can kind of watch through your heart rate, your weight, your sleep patterns, your activity, what your NT-proBNP is doing. So then we wouldn't actually have to draw the blood. We could just look at your data.
Well, that's pretty cool. So really, you wear a watch. I see in the thing it was a Sony watch, not an Apple Watch. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay,
Sony.
so you got to be cool with Sony here. And what is this study measuring then? It's measuring this BNP level. And just for our listening audience, what that means, the BNP level it's a measure of like how much excess fluid you have on board. And so when the level goes high, it means you have a lot of excess fluid. We should intervene. When it's low, it means things are going well. What's the study trying to find?
The study is trying to find a correlation between non-invasive things such as your heart rate, your sleep patterns, your activity, and then trying to correlate it to the NT-proBNP so that we wouldn't have to draw the blood, we can just watch your data.
That is cool. So how do they currently monitor these kinds of patients? And tell us a little bit about why it's a different monitoring method being studied.
So currently, it is very hard to manage heart failure patients. As most of you know, heart failure fluctuates with how much fluid you drink, what you're eating. So it can change from day to day. So it is just difficult to manage it now. You can manage it with medications. There's also some devices called like CardioMEMS, for example, that's implanted in your pulmonary artery. The good thing about this study is that it is non-invasive.
Yeah, I love that. And otherwise, you're left with things like that, or just the old-fashioned ways. Are you short of breath, or has your weight gone up? And unfortunately, those are changes that occur kind of after the fact. You'd really like to get in front of that, so when the trends start going wrong, you can intervene, keep people at home. So, who's a good candidate for this research?
That's a great question. So right now, this current study, we are trying to study people who have an EF lower than 40%.
So that's ejection fraction. How much, again, your heart normally pumps out about 65%. You're saying, man, if it goes less than 40%, then we're starting having to think about it.
Correct,
okay.
Yes. So those are great patients for this study and that are wanting to contribute to research and help out learn something new.
All right, so even though it's called a bloodless blood test, there's still a little bit of blood that has to be involved, right? I mean, you have to kind of standardize equipment, whatever. Tell us about that and why it's necessary.
Yes, so because this is a research study, we don't know everything about it. So it's important to get blood on this this little device right here, if you can see. They'll take some blood and send it in and make sure it correlates with the data being collected from the watch.
So, you know, Dr. McCoy and the Enterprise, do you know who that is?
No.
Oh, no! Where does she come from? Okay, so this show called Star Trek. They had this Dr. McCoy flew around the universe with Captain Kirk and Spock, and he just had an upside-down salt shaker, and it made funny sounds. He pointed out, she could tell everything about you. We're getting to be like that, right? We're at the future here.
Yes.
This is really impressive.
Yes.
So, Brian, tell us why you decided to participate. But, Brian, do you know who Dr. McCoy was?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a huge Star Trek fan.
Live long and prosper, brother. Eva, we're going to have to introduce you to some TV. Go ahead, Brian.
So the idea of wearing the watch really appealed to me. You know, of course, I want to help research and study at KU. I agreed to everything they wanted to do to me. They did, I think, 3 or 4 different studies on me through the entire process. But wearing the watch and submitting to the blood test through the finger prick gave me a sense of well-being, knowing that I'm constantly being monitored or watched. They're recording my data. I have a line of communication, and they're able to share that data with my doctors if need be. So that gave me a nice kind of warm, fuzzy feeling in a time of, you know, real instability where I was pretty scared.
Yeah, you know, I'll just tell you, as a physician who's worked with a bunch of clinical trials in the field I'm in, CIF to CF, People like you are so important. That's what advances the science. You got a lot of work at the bench, meaning in the labs. You got to work at the bedside. You got to test it on real folks so you can see if it's truly going to have an impact. And it's how we advance the ball here, to borrow from a football metaphor on today. It is how we advance the ball, and that is so important. And when you do, you get great results. And just like how far heart transplants come, heart failure therapies come. So how long were you involved in this study?
I wore the watch, I think, for a total of about 11 months. I wore it through heart failure. I wore it during transplant, post-transplant. And then they asked if I would continue the study, that they were getting some great data from me, I guess, through my recovery. So I continued to wear the watch just up until a couple of months ago.
All right, so before you enrolled in the study, did you have to spend a lot of time in the lab, or did you still have to go to the lab even when you're in the study just to kind of monitor things and see how they compared?
Yeah, in the very beginning, diving into heart failure, so to speak, they wanted to see me pretty regularly just to watch all my levels. So, of course, I was happy to participate in the study when they suggested it, just as another stopgap measure of, a feeling of security for myself. But it was nice after transplant, they're collecting that data, and you don't have to go to the lab. You're in your own kitchen, and you prick your finger and put it on the collection device and put it in a FedEx box, and they pick it up at my door. That's all I had to do.
I'd say it's like hours out of a day right there, because otherwise it's a couple hours to go to the lab, get it drawn, sit there. I mean, that's tremendous. Eva, what more needs to be studied here?
That's a great question. I think the awesome thing about healthcare is we are always making strides towards improving for our patients. So I think the possibilities that are endless.
And if someone wants to take part in this study or in this trial, what should they do?
They should talk to their doctor and see if they're a good candidate and if they can reach out to the research team.
All right. So here's was this studied in normals as well as the patients like this? I bet it was studied in normals first. I bet it was, because normally we have to study it in the phase 1 trial. We just got to test the technology and see if it's working at all. We're going to get to these phase 3 trials and really do some good comparison work. All right, I'm sure a lot of our viewers have questions for our guests. Get yours sent in to us now on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and the Medical News Network. You'll find links to those right here on your screen. Jessica Lowe will join us in a few moments with those questions, and I expect some questions for Eva about Star Trek. First, let's check in with Dr. Dana Hawkinson, Medical Director of Infection Prevention Control. The COVID numbers, health system, how are we doing?
Hi, I'm good. I got to say that in the 2 or 3 years of these shows, Eva's answer was probably one of the best that we could hear.
Yeah, okay, that's because you're a Star Wars.
It was a succinct 2-letter word, but it implied so much on so many levels. So,
who asked you, Hawkeye? Give me that football. I'm going to throw it at you.
Anyways, we had a little bump in our active cases yesterday. Today, we are back down to those mid-20s. We have 55 total, but 28 active, 6 in the ICU, and 2 on the ventilator. So unfortunately, we're kind of holding steady in that mid-20s range.
Hawkeye, we've been in this level for a while now. This just feels like our reality.
I think so.
And I think, and if you remember back at the beginning of the pandemic, we would have said, oh, this is terrible. Now we're like, okay, well, this is so much better than 250 that we're delighted. But it's still a lot of patients. It's still significantly worse than the flu.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, in the flu, we had a couple weeks there where this year we saw a lot more than we have in the hospital in any normal year. But what we're seeing now with COVID-19 is that we are just seeing this continued baseline of people coming into the hospital. And again, we are testing only those people that are symptomatic for disease. We are not testing everybody who's coming into the hospital. So these people are here because of COVID, or maybe COVID has pushed their chronic comorbid conditions a little bit over the edge, whether it's heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease, if they are immunosuppressed, and things of that nature. So unfortunately, I think we are at a new baseline, but we are still going to continue to endorse vaccination. We know that helps reduce risk of hospitalization and death. Also testing early, getting on Paxlovid if you can take that therapy, and really trying to reduce the risk, your risk individually, but overall the community's risk of having to go to the hospital in the ICU.
You know, Hawkeye, and this is such an important point because it's so true for so many diseases, right? If you get intervention early, you can help it. It's kind of the whole point of what we were talking about just a little while ago. If we can kind of this bloodless blood test, we can intervene a lot earlier, and that way we keep people out of the hospital. So the things you do to keep us healthy really make a big difference. Okay, Jess, I want you to go along with me here. You ready? Jess? Oh, Jess, are you ready for me? Here we go.
I'm having trouble hearing you. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Hey, Jess, on 3. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Red Kingdom. Come on, Jess, work with me.
I can't.
Red Kingdom.
I cannot compete with your singing. You know this.
Jess.
I won't dare.
Come on, yes, your spirit. Okay, fine.
Okay, so I've got a question from Karen, and she is asking Brian if the care team ever reached out to him based on what they saw on the device. And if they saw something, what did they ask him to do?
That's a great question. Brian?
No, I never got a specific communication about any particular levels. They really were just recording the data. I believe they were capable of sharing it with my physicians on staff at KU, but they never really breached that barrier of data collection to, talk with me directly about what they're collecting.
Yeah, I think even the key here is that, and help me with this, but I think they probably couldn't do that. Because normally in research trials, you really can't use the information because you haven't studied it yet to know what it means. Now, if they did a blood test, they could talk about the blood test, so that's standard of care when they were comparing it against something. But this new information, the whole point is to find out, is it valid or not?
Exactly, yes. So we don't want to be titrating medications based off research. We need to prove that this is accurate, and then after the study is completed and it's approved to be used, then we can start using it for titrating medications and things like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. And so, Brian, I bet they couldn't, and they really can't share the story with your physicians either. They get the blood information from these trials, but you can't look, and you don't know, they're not sure if the data is helpful yet or not. Jess, back to you.
Well, Logan wants to know, if you sign up for this, how long are you in the study?
So currently, Tribe 2 is the study. Brian is on Tribe 1. So Tribe 2 is 6 months long.
Okay. And have they published the results from Tribe 1 yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
We're anxiously awaiting them, right?
Yes.
And I know you can't tell us, does it work or not, because we don't know that yet until the results are published. Okay, Jess.
All right, Ashley wants to know, and so do I, Brian, with everything you've been through, does it feel like life is officially back to normal? How are you feeling today?
Really, you're trading one set of problems for a whole new set of problems. Well, I don't know if I'd say problems, but a new normal. The medication regimen, the blood testing, the lab work and stuff, looking for rejection. Slowly things become more normal. I feel fantastic from prior, of course, being in heart failure. But it really is a new normal. I don't think I'll ever be the same guy I was several years ago. But certainly I'm thankful to be where I am and just kind of managing my health on a day-to-day basis.
Brian, years ago I was trained and I did a lung transplant training, and I remember the physician, who I still think is one of the Bert Trulock, one of the finest physicians I've ever met, and probably the best lung doctor I've ever met. And he would always say, you're trading one chronic condition or chronic disease for another. The first chronic disease is probably going to take your life. The second chronic disease, we're going to manage to try and keep you alive. And I think folks have to understand that with transplant, you don't go back to normal. It's a brand new normal. It's just you've traded your first chronic disease, which was really bad, for this new chronic disease, transplantitis, with all these medicines you have to be on and things like that. Is that fair?
Oh, that's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but you feel better. You can go get to do things, and yeah, it's a lot. And you can watch the Chiefs on the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
Brian, are you going to the parade?
Not today. It's a bit much for me. It's freezing outside. being immune suppressed, I said, let's just skip this one. I'll watch it on TV.
Excellent choice. I'm gonna try it. It's a little cold outside too. I may have to do some work today, Jess.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, Brian, you're a smart guy. Watch it from TV. Dr. Stites, that's going to wrap it up in here. I'm going to send it back to you for some final thoughts.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. This has been a really cool program. We've gone from Chiefs to stroke to how we can actually find how patients are doing with this new futuristic device and approach, which I think is really important in the future of medicine. If you step back and think about it, so many things we have to do to find out information are invasive, yet our body's giving off signals all the time, and it's just depending how well we can measure and assess those, and then start using therapy to intervene. It's pretty cool stuff. All right, final thoughts. We're going to start with you, Brian.
I'm just happy to be here today. It's been a wonderful experience working with KU. The quality of care that I received at KU was just absolutely amazing. I am over the moon with gratitude for the staff of KU. It's about all I can really say. I'm just overjoyed.
Eva.
Oh, well, that's awesome, Brian. I'm glad you're having a great experience here. We're very grateful for patients like you who are willing to participate in research. So thank you.
All right, Doc Hawk.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point. Your guest brought up a good point, not going down there. Everybody, if you're down at the parade today and down doing those festivities, just be safe and try to stay well and stay warm and make it back so you can, have the rest of the week to continue to celebrate, because I don't think we need to stop necessarily today. But everybody, when you're down at the parade, just be safe and watch out for your other Kansas Citian.
It's been a great program today, and I want to thank all of our guests for joining us. I do want to have one reflection. I've been in Kansas City a very long time, and that's why I keep growing my hair out and getting cool hats. But, when you've been through the Kansas City through the really cold days in the 70s and 80s, and you'd be out of the stadium in December and it'd be like 15,000 fans and it was 15 degrees, it was tough. But what's wonderful to watch about these Chiefs is how inspiring they are, what good folks they are. And it does take an entire team. It takes the city, it takes the medical staff, it takes the physicians, it takes everyone, and yes, it takes Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. It is a special time. It's also a special time in medicine, because we're seeing new developments that are just radically shifting the landscape. When I was a younger physician, when you had a big stroke come in, you just watched people have a stroke. And it was the most helpless feeling. And today, we're doing things to change the lives and keep people at a much better level, and that is just the beginning. And we've learned on this program the cool therapies in cancer, the cool therapies in transplant and heart failure and lung disease, and cystic fibrosis and all sorts of things. It is a remarkable day, and I think I'm privileged, I think all of us are privileged. Every day, it feels like you get to come in here and you get to win the Super Bowl, and it is the best feeling. And for patients like Brian and folks doing this work in behind with Eva and all the folks doing the research to help advance the care, thank you, because that is the Super Bowl that we try to win for our patients every day. Jess, back to you.
Oh, I love watching you have a serious conversation, looking like that. It's awesome.
It's the best, man.
Like Curly.
There you go. I'm looking
there you
great.
go.
Let's do it.
It's like Curly from the Three Stooges. I'm sorry, I was trying to figure out that hair and the hat. It looks awesome.
I know, it's pretty
I love
good.
it.
Put me in,
Never
coach.
changed.
I'm ready to play. Okay.
Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for watching today. And it is simply amazing to be able to say this, but our doctors who care for the Chiefs already know what it's like to be in a Super Bowl victory parade. They have been there, done that, and here's what they remember from their last trip down the route.
And whether you're a player, coach, medical staff, I mean, everybody has the same euphoria when you go out and you see the confetti, you see everything that comes with winning a Super Bowl, and it's a pretty special thing to experience.
There are people everywhere. They are stacked, as many people as can fit, from the curbside to the building, and then the parking garages are full of people, the rooftops are full of people.
It was cold, I remember that. We had a great time, and saw everyone coming out to support the team was really nice. I remember it was cold, so it'd be nice to have a little bit warmer weather out there.
It's a great experience. Winning is better than losing.
Coming up tomorrow on the Morning Medical Update. It felt like heartburn, but it was serious heart trouble instead. I'm Jessica Lovell on the next Morning Medical Update.
I knew I needed to walk more. I knew I needed to exercise more, and I wasn't doing it.
He's back behind his drums after a complicated surgery. How doctors pulled off the quintuple bypass. Thursday at 8.
I'm Alexis Del Cid on the next All Things Heart.
I couldn't see, like it was all black, and I didn't know what was going on. I was just kind of throwing myself around.
Terrifying to experience and just as frightening for his family to witness, followed by a discovery by cardiologists here at the health system that saved more than one life. Thursday morning at 10.
Subscribe to our Morning Medical Update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcasts. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.